I walk and I talk with the King.
Good morning, and as always, we thank you for being with us this Tuesday for this week's edition of Tuesday Tips. If you've been with us in the past few weeks for Tuesday Tips, you know that we've been discussing the subject of faith with the overall theme pertaining to focusing on faith. We have been looking at the practical aspect of faith, the practical aspect of living a Christian life. We have used the verse from Hebrews chapter 11 pertaining to what it means to have faith and why faith is important. From Hebrews 11 and verse number 6, the Bible explains to us how that faith is believing in the existence of God. But it doesn't stop there. Our faith also helps us to understand that God expects, as a result of our belief in His existence, that we diligently seek Him. And so the verse explains, "He that cometh to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him." There is something very practical about the application of this verse, and it has to do with faith, obviously. We have been taking our lessons from the context of the inspired writing of the book of James. The very practical way that James sets forth our faith is acceptable unto God. It is a faith that is active. It is a faith that is obedient. It's a faith, as a result of these two things, that can be seen. We have focused our attention in the last couple of weeks in chapter 1, beginning at verse 2, where James actually says, "My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into divers temptation, knowing that the trying of your faith worketh patience." We've noticed, and as we continue our study down through verse 12, various aspects of what James would have us to understand as we focus on faith, how we should react properly. We should react properly by positively recognizing the situation. Count it all joy, James explains. Now, the world doesn't view temptations, trials, and tribulations in this particular way, but the Christian can. If we have faith in God, understanding that He will, as we diligently seek Him, He will reward us accordingly, we have the right attitude. That's what James is talking about, positive attitude. But then he explains that we should be patient with our faith. And that's what we began to discuss last week, along with the fact from verse 5 that James explains we should do so prayerfully. And so we've noticed three things about one who has faith and how he should properly react: positively, patiently, and prayerfully. This morning we will notice the last two of our focus from James chapter 1 and verse 2 through verse 12 with these 2 points. The one who has faith properly reacts to trials proudly and perseveringly. Now, as we think about the idea of focusing our faith and the one who has faith, the way he should properly react, in thinking about, as James explains, how we should do so proudly, we focus our attention on verses 9 through 11. Notice that James explains, "Let the brother of low degree rejoice in that he is exalted, and yet the rich," verse 10, "in that he is made low," the idea of humility. "Because as the flower of grass he shall pass. For the sun is no sooner risen with a burning heat, but it withereth the grass, and the flower thereof falleth. The grace of the fashion of it perisheth, and so also shall the rich man fade away in his ways. Notice the comparison, the illustration that James uses concerning the flower of grass and the rich man as far as his humility is concerned. The idea of being proud concerning our faith doesn't come from the things of this world, nor the things that this world has to offer. And James is not denouncing one who is rich. He's just describing one who is rich having the proper attitude, the proper focus of faith, properly reacting to trials, tribulations that he may face as a result of his riches. But he begins this discussion, as we noticed in verse 9, with the brother of low degree, the one who is poor. He explains how that the man who properly reacts to trials doesn't react as a pessimist. He reacts as an optimist. The brother of low degree and the rich have the same reason to rejoice in the midst of trials. And so you see how the one who is poor and the one who is rich is brought together when it comes to faith. Properly reacting from faith. The one who is rich, the one who is poor, both receives blessings of God. And as with the flower and grass, life on earth passes away. James is here talking about a mindset, an attitude. It doesn't matter if I'm rich. It doesn't matter if I'm poor. We have common ground. And it has to do with faith. You see how practical James presents the idea of being faithful in service to God. But not only does James talk about how one should proudly act concerning trials and tribulation, he talks about how one should persevere. Notice as we actually bring this thought to a conclusion, properly reacting to trials, by the perseverance that James describes in verse 12. He begins by saying, blessed or happiness is the man that endureth temptation. No matter if you're rich, no matter if you're poor. If you endure temptation, James explains, when you're tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. This might remind us of another passage of Scripture found in Revelation 2 and verse 10, where Jesus is actually, as he is commanding the angel to write to the church at Smyrna, who is suffering greatly, trials, tribulations, physical, emotional, spiritual. He tells them, be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. And so James is simply explaining how that the man of faith must continue in spite of trials and tribulations, the difficulties of life. You and I all have these same things in common. Trials, tribulations, difficulties. How do we overcome this? By properly reacting. The one who has faith understands this idea. He endures temptation, as this verse explains. As is the case with anything, one's outlook determines the outcome. And that's what James is describing here from the beginning of how we should positively focus our faith, patiently deal with faith, prayerfully handle faith, proudly, no matter who we are, socially, we should persevere. Persevere. A faith that cannot be tested is a faith that cannot be trusted. Yes, our faith is going to be tried. But you and I, as we focus on our faith, if we will properly react to trials and tribulations, when we act this way, react this way, that's going to help us to persevere. So as we focus our faith today, let us be encouraged to understand that one who has faith, the faith that pleases God, properly reacts to trials. Thank you so much for being with us today.
I walk and I talk with